everybody, good morning. It's Jean Truelove from Truelove Quilts for You. I'm doing a tutorial on my block number 2 for my Jean's Block Party 2021, which may or may not be called the Dear Jane quilt after you're done. There's a story behind that. That sounds very boastful of me. Anyway, as you know, I started out with block number 1 last week, or whenever that was, with a certain line of fabric. I've changed my line of fabric, but I'm going to tell you something. Something very freaky has happened. I think it's a story. I don't know what happened. I will be showing you my new line of fabric. I think I've shown you that the last video, but I had already made the video, which the tutorial is to come. Don't worry, it's going to come in a few minutes. But I went back and I've re-edited it and I've put this in today because I wanted to show you my new line of fabric and my new blocks that I've made, block 1 and block 2. But I thought, well, before I did that, I wanted to show you my original blocks. Again, just at the beginning. I'm not going to be going over, beating a dead horse. So as you know, I think I had explained in the very beginning, I was going to, along with my project bag and along with my box here, I was going to be keeping my blocks. The more blocks I got, I was going to be putting them in both my project bag and my box here. Well, lo and behold, I cannot find blocks 1, 2, and 3 of my original thing. Isn't that weird? Now I've folded up my fat quarters, my the folklore by Moda, beautiful. I mean folktale, beautiful, beautiful. I put it up on my shelf here, but I can't find my blocks 1, 2, and 3. That's weird. It's somewhere in my sewing room and I just misplaced it. And I just thought, oh well. So anyway, as you know, I'm going to be using my Cafe Facet fabrics. And a couple people have asked me, I had gotten both, over a year ago, I had gotten both what is the cool and the warm collection. It's called 25 fat quarters each. They are the Cafe Facet Collective February 2020. This is a 25-piece fat quarter warm. These are all the warm tones, although they have the purples and the blues, and so does the cool, have the reds and the oranges, but it's a bundle that comes like that. I have yet to use my warm palette here. I just pulled from my my cool palette. I obviously won't be using all of these fabrics. Again, as I said with my other collection, I won't be using all of these, but this is where I'm pulling from. And then if you hadn't seen before, I showed you it before, this is my neutral. These are my 2 neutrals. I might add another one, but I'm using a gray, a white on gray dot, and a black and gray on a white dot as my neutral. Remember, neutrals can be any color you wish them to be. Now, my second block. Let me go here. So I don't know where my other blocks are. That was not meant to be. That's just the weirdest thing. Odd. But here are my blocks number 1, and coming up in my other tutorial, block number 2. Here is block number 1, our 4 patch, and here is block number 2 of my new fabric line, and it's a bow tie. Okay, it's a basic 4 patch. Remember, a 2 grid, but a 4 patch, and then we have extra fabric in here to make this bow tie. Now, obviously, you want to have with this block a higher contrast, and it's interesting. I don't even remember what my other one looked like. I have to go back. My original one, I don't think I had gotten enough contrast. You really do want a nice contrast just to be able to see your bow here on this block. Now, this was the funny, so that's block number 1, and this is the tutorial to come up, block number 2. But it's the funniest thing, I have to tell you. 2 days ago, Maxwell and I were at the store, was it Walmart? I don't know, supermarket. And as I was waiting in line at the checkout, you know, they have the magazines and the gum and everything. I grabbed the chocolate bar. I paid for it, don't worry. But we waited like an hour in line, whatever. And I saw a magazine, and it's called Quilts and More. I used to buy tons and tons of quilting magazines. I have them coming out my wazoo, and I have tons of books. But this one just appealed to me, and I was just in the checkout line, just leafing through it, and I said, "Oh my word, Maxwell! Look, this is the this is new." And I promise I did not copy this. This is display until 4/23/21. This is a Better Homes and Garden, Quilts and More. Okay? Now I made my video, you have to believe me, I made my video for my block number 2 about 9 or 10 days ago. Okay, but look what I found when I opened up my when I opened up the magazine. There is a bow tie block in a rainbow color, and it actually I wanted to share that with you because it actually sort of harkens back to what I was saying in the beginning. One block. If you're comfortable making one block, then this is it. This is a bow tie block. Now, as I was looking, and they've done it, this is in a rainbow color. Now, this finished block is 8 inches square. So I did not copy from this. They didn't copy from me either because we did 2 different size blocks. So there's a funny thing, isn't it? How you make the rainbow block. And there, you want to know really with a written pattern, get this magazine, Quilts and More. I show you how though. It's basically a 4 patch with a hunk of fabric in it. But that's for an 8-inch block. But I just thought that was so funny that there is block number 2 in a Quilts and More Better Homes and Garden this month. So I don't know where my fabrics got, my other blocks have gone to. They have disappeared. Wow, that's like weird. And this is block number 2 that my tutorial is going to be on the other fabric line. And I hope you enjoy it. We have woken up, and I'm just going to put another little thing. We have woken up to another snowstorm, and boy, it's really coming down. And as you know, I love the snow, and we have our quad and we have our plow, and we got a few messages from 2 of our kids who don't have a plow, say that the others have tractors and plows and quads. Were you thinking of going out today, Maxwell? That's funny. They probably will, but Maxwell has to clear our driveway and has to get out to the barn to get the snow blower. There's a lot of snow coming down. I'm warm in my house. I love it. But the boys, they didn't mind. They don't mind. They got all fun. I don't know if you can see this, but we woke up to, you're going to get tired of me posting pictures of snow, especially if you guys have snow. But man, is it coming down. Huge flakes though. And yet, I don't know, when I was little, it was like big flakes don't last long, but this has given us about 2.5 inches of snow already in the last hour. It is snowing. Yeah, this is looking out my sewing room into our woods. We have a tree. It's funny, when our son lived in this house, there was these 2 trees growing out of the deck. Big, 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 tall trees. He built the house with the trees having been built around this, the deck having been built around the trees. And they were too tall. They were 10 foot away from the house. So he had them chopped down to, what would it be, 15, 20 foot high. That one over there just stayed. This one, this one is regrown. Oh, look at that. So we have a leafy tree right outside with a deck built around it. Isn't that funny? Yeah. There's our barn. Oh, it's so beautiful. So Maxwell has to get out his quad. Oh, look at that. There's the birds. I hear the birds. Oh, so beautiful. Good morning, everybody. It's Jean here, Jean Truelove from Truelove Quilts for You. You must excuse my hair. It's a little bit damp. I just got out of the shower. I got out of the shower and I was working on my block party, Jean's Block Party 2021. I have made block number 2. Just a few things. Somebody had, before I get into my block, somebody had just mentioned if you have a sewing machine that has, and I'm sure that you understand your sewing machine, but if you have a needle that sort of defaults back to a setting that's not your straight stitch. It was a very interesting thing that somebody pointed it out. Pardon me, I don't remember who you are. My little brother machine, just my lovely little brother machine that we had bought from Malia, that is here, that I use occasionally. Her machine, her inexpensive brother, does, when it resets, and it's a computerized machine, it goes back to a needle position that every time I start it up. I have to reset it at a certain needle position. So if you have a machine that sets perhaps closer, it might be messing up your 1/4 of an inch, and you're thinking, what in the world is going on? So make sure that your needle position in your machine, if it's a computerized machine, is set properly. Thank you so much for pointing that out, whoever made that comment. That was a very, very good thing, because again, my little inexpensive brother machine set it so it was to the right of the plate, and what I would think would be doing a 1/4 inch was less, whatever. So that's that. For block number 2, for our block party, we've done block number 1. That was a 2 grid, remember? I'm doing another 2 grid, but we've added 2 more pieces of fabric into that 2 grid. Now, this block, you will need a higher contrast fabric. Now, I will say that all along as I go through my block party. When I was especially doing my red and white quilt, you needed a contrast for so many of the blocks. And in any sort of block, you really do want a contrast, and that's where perhaps your neutral will come into it, or another smaller or another larger print, or another color. If you're doing scrappy, you want a contrast. So this week's block, I have a decent contrast. I pulled from my fat quarters, I used a darker green and then a lighter green floral. So I have the contrast to what makes up what's called a bow tie block. It just looks like a sweet little bow tie. This is a very good block to make if you're wanting to make like 20 of them, and then you have a block and a plain and a block and a plain, and it makes up a sweet little baby quilt, perhaps in baby gender colors. Very, very sweet little block to make easy. We are adding this other little square in the middle here to make up our triangle. I show you how we do that. This is all squares, but it makes up 2 little triangle lookings. So number 2 of our block party. Again, if you want to make several of them, you enjoy making this, by all means. I'm just making 1 each of now as I go along, because we will be making quite a few blocks. But again, this is a 2 grid. You know what that is now. A 2 grid with more than 4 pieces of fabric. Again, choose your high contrast, and I do hope you enjoy the tutorial. Let me know, you beginners, how you're getting on. It's very, very, very simple. I hope I'm not dialing it back too much for you. You know, like, I knew that, but a lot of people are like, no, I need to know that. I like it when you repeat things. You go step by step, and I just think that's what a beginner tutorial should be. And again, kudos to you people who know how to make these blocks in your sleep. My advanced beginners, intermediate, expert quilters, you're very kind for watching me. But hopefully, beginner quilters, you will have a quilt, whatever you are wanting, whatever's in your head at the end of the day, with block number 2. I hope you enjoy it, folks. Okay, and as usual, I'm going to put the photograph of the block and the cutting measurements again at the end of the video. All right, so enjoy yourselves. See ya. Bye. For our block number 2, hopefully I will have shown you in the beginning, I'm choosing 2 greens of my fat quarters. I'm choosing a print, and I'm choosing a green solid. Pretty. I'm going to try to use all of the colors here. The last week's was the blue and the cream. This week's it's the green. So now for our block number 2, as I did last week, I'm not going to bore you. You'll have already done this. You're going to prepare your fat quarters or your layer cakes or your fabric, all nice and ironed. I cannot emphasize the importance of ironing or pressing your fabrics and all of the seams. I cannot stress that, how very vital that is in quilting. Just have your iron as an extension of your sewing machine. It's as important as your stitching, your end product. I did learn that in home ec long ago. Over 50 years ago, when my teacher, I'm like, I just want to iron everything at the end. You want to do this as you go along. So my fabric's all been pressed. So I have my 2 on top. I have neatened up. I've just taken off a sliver of my fat quarter here. Again, I lay them the 22-inch wide, the 18 down if you're using fat quarters. And I've just neatened up this edge here. here. So now our cutting instructions for this block. We are going to be using fabric A, which I'm deeming as my top fabric here, my floral. I'm going to be cutting 2 3.5-inch squares. And also for fabric B, I'm cutting 2 3.5-inch squares plus another. So we're doing exactly what we did last week, block number 1. We are making a 2-grid 4-patch with a variation. Okay, so we're doing a 2-grid. We're working with a larger unit again this week. So now what I've done is I've taken my ruler. This is all neatened up over here. And again, as you saw how I do it, however you want to cut, as I say, I put my fabric over to the left. I was thinking if you're left-handed, you might want to do it the opposite way. However it is comfortable for you. A lot of people are using the lines on your mat. I don't use the lines on my mat. I do prefer my 2-ruler method. I just find it's very, very accurate. So what I'm doing is I'm lining my ruler up here, and I am finding, again, my 3.5-inch. 3.5 inches on my ruler, okay? Now, I know I want him to be cut 2 of each, so I'm going to do exactly as I did last week. I'm going to find about the 7.5 inch, which is about that line there on my cutting, on my mat. So I'm just going to start, I can see that. I'm just going to find my 3.5 inch right along, right up to about there. And I'm just going to open up my rotary cutter, and I'm just going to slice it to about there, and then just over, like that. And pull this aside for now. Now I know that this edge is all nice and neat. This edge has all been cut. Now I just have to cut this bit here. I'm lining that up on my mat. I'm just cutting that nice and straight, that little sliver. And now, again, I'm finding my 3.5 inch by 3.5 inch is perfect. I've cut it perfectly. 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. I hold my ruler, I open my cutter, I close my cutter. I put my fabric away. Again, if you're just tuning in here, these rotary cutters are so very sharp, they can cut your finger off, as I can attest. I got my finger cut off many, many moons ago, and I had to have surgery, plastic surgery, and skin grafts and everything for my finger, which I have no feeling. So your rotary cutter, please, please, please keep it away from children, obviously. It's not like a pizza cutter. I mean, pizza cutters are sharp, but this thing, yeah, can do harm. So be very careful. Make a habit. Close it at every cut. So there's my 3.5, and there's my 3.5. And I just have a bit. Now here are my 2. There's my 2 3.5 inch squares. Now from fabric B, I want to cut 2 2-inch squares. So what I do is I'll fold up my fabric A here, put it back in my pile, and I'll work with fabric B. Now I know that this edge here I already neatened up. I know that, so I will put that on my cutting mat line. Now this edge isn't neatened up because I just sliced that off, but let me just put this over here. So I know this is, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to find, this is nice and straight, I'm going to find my 2-inch line on my ruler. And I need 2 2-inch squares. So I'm going to go up about 4.5 inches to there, and I know it's right to about there, but I'm going to cut my 2 inches. And then I'm going to just, then I'm just going to cut that off. Now I do know that both of my ends are not straight, so I'm going to neaten them up and cut my 2-inch squares. Just a sliver there. Bring my ruler back. There's exactly my 2-inch square. Take your time cutting. That's the most important to get your nice seams right. There's my 2-inch square right there. Hold my ruler and cut. So this is what I need to make my new block here. So what I told you last week, when you first come over to your machine, you want to do a test strip. You want to do a test sample of your stitch quality. Make sure your machine is all set up, your tension, your stitches, your stitch length, and everything, so that when you go to your fabric, that's not your experiment if something messes up or if your bobbin messes up. Now what I have done is, because I have a few extra pieces, I'm going to be using my design board, my little felted or my little batted design board, which you saw in my introduction, and I have laid out these fabrics as I am looking at them right now, as my block is going to want to appear. As you can see, we just have a 4 patch here in our 2 grid, but in the beginning you saw that there's this little bow tie that makes this little area here, and that is these green fabrics here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the little triangles on these 2 prints here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a floral print for me and then a little square, and I'm going to place this square right in the bottom right hand corner of this square there. Because we've cut it absolutely perfectly, you can see how well that square fits. Now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch it from this corner here to this corner here, just in a straight line. Go very slow, and just eyeball a straight line from that point. What you want to do is, because we're working with a smaller unit, and I don't want you to freak out about this, but like we're stitching from this point to that point, okay? But we're going to just stitch maybe 1 thread inside. And that, people who followed me before understand that that gives us the ability to turn this little square into a perfect triangle. You must realize that your thread that you're using takes up a millionth of an inch of space. So we just want to, we're stitching from here to here, but just 1 little tiny thread inside. Now I'm putting my needle down and my presser foot down, and I can see hopefully that I'm going to go slow. I'm just eyeballing from here to here, just 1 thread inside. So when I turn it, it's going to turn over really nice. Hopefully, that's the plan. I pinch, I pull, and I cut my threads. So now the test, there we go. It's turned out a lovely square corner right there. Just lovely. I could have done just slightly in, because there's just a shred, but I'm okay with that. When that goes, I'm going to just sort of finger press that like that. We will trim this off, but not right now. I'm going to do this one. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Now this one, the bottom right goes into the square, goes into your upper left, okay, into the middle of our block. And again, I'm going to turn that around, and I'm stitching just 1 thread inside into here. Just go slowly. And again, if you need your little leader because your fabric's gotten chewed in these small pieces, by all means use it. And right off, you can see I'm not going fast. I'll trim I like to trim all of my threads. A lot of you have maybe an automatic trimmer on your machine. By all means use it. And again, there is my lovely snowballed corner, that is called. Now I'm just going to press that. Now with a nice sharp pair of scissors, what you're wanting to do with this, you're wanting to take your nice sharp scissors, and you're going to just cut this outside edge. Just cut that edge about 1/4 of an inch. So it looks like we made 1/4 of an inch seam. Cut that little bit off. And we do it this way, and there is a little bit of waste, but it's easier to work with a square and make your corner than it is to work with this little fiddly triangle, okay? So I'm going to cut this one off. And there we go. Now I'm going to finger press them. We're going to do the exact same thing that we did last week. Okay, there's our little block coming to life there. It looks like a little bow tie, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 2 top pieces and I'm going to just finger press that without pulling, without stretching, because that's on the bias. I'm going to put this over here like that one. And I'm going to sew exactly like we did last week. I'm going to line up my presser foot with a 1/4 inch foot. I'm going to line this block up and just go slowly. I'm going to leave my needle down and I'm going to grab this one, making sure all the while you recall the orientation. Put that one over there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over so I can sew it on this side. And what am I going to do? I'm going to chain piece. I'm going to just lift my presser foot up, and it's caught now. It's caught now. I'm going to straighten it up. And again, if you want to use pins, by all means. I don't find it necessary. Straighten this up. Go slowly. Okay, pinch it and pull. Now I'm going to trim off these little threads here and trim that just like we did last week for our 4 patch. This is a bit of a glorified 4 patch. So we have this unit here. Look, our little snowball blocks. Now remember when I said last week you want to go where your fabric wants to tell you where it wants to go? Look at that. My fabric is wanting to go to this darker side here and here. My seam, I should say. You see that? You see how that fabric? But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just sort of finger press that without stretching or pulling it. Just going to finger press that seam over. I'm going to finger press this seam over. Finger pressing is good. Cotton is an excellent fiber to work with because it does press, it does stretch when you want it, and then it stretches back. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our top unit, and what did we do last week? We nested our seams together. We nested this seam together here. Okay? That one's going that way. You can feel it. This one's going that way. And then we straighten up our block here. We've sewn it. We've cut it beautifully. I'm going to put it under my presser foot. Oops. Always have your thread back under your presser foot. That's basic sewing technique. Everything's straightened up, 1/4 inch. Don't go too fast. Straighten it up as you go along. The seam should be right there. One's going one way, one's going the next. You can feel it. You can feel that. And right off. Pinch, pull, and trim. And there is our lovely, beautiful little block. Look how lovely that is. Look at how super that is. Just that little extra makes a lovely little bow tie block. Now I'm going to go over to my ironing board and I'm going to press all of these seams really well. We're going to press, that looks like that seam wants to go that way, but I'll meet you back over at my ironing board. Our lovely little block number 2. Sweet. Little bow tie. Now I've not pressed anything yet. So I want to turn this over, and the first thing I want to do is I want to press these seams that I finger pressed. And again, just very carefully, just sort of set them into your stitches into the seam, one at a time. Don't rush. I'm gonna do this one here. I'm gonna do this one here. And then, again, where does my fabric want to go? My fabric wants to go this way. And again, half of it's onto the dark and half of it's onto the light, but I'm okay with that. Because I think if your fabric is wanting to sort of, the way you've stitched it, the way it wants to go, then it's going to lay a lot flatter. And there we go. There's my lovely block. My intersection is almost perfect. And again, with the snowballs, because you're turning it over, that little extra, if it's slightly askew, which I think this block is, just slightly, that comes when we go to square it up. There is my little bow tie block. You need a bit of contrast in this block. As you can see, I had that darker, so I have contrast. Now, again, let's see if my block is square. And that, folks, can you see that? That is pretty good. That is pretty good. I don't have to trim up anything. Everything is matching up nice. I don't know if you can see that because this is a green, an orangey green ruler on my green fabric, but it is absolutely super. Nothing needs to be trimmed up. That, folks, is a 6.5 inch block. Ah, so pretty. So yeah, so there is my block number 2. Little bow tie. You need a high contrast for your block. If this gets a bit muddy and that gets a bit muddy, you will lose your bow tie. Classic little block. So I hope you enjoyed that. All right, folks. Thanks. Bye.